Hello, vinyl community. It's Bill here again. And now for something completely different. Usually my videos are solo efforts, but today we're going to have a three-way video collaboration. And what usually happens is I have a Zoom meeting with some of my good friends who are across different parts of the UK. One's also in the Aberdeen area, and one's in Derbyshire, and one's in Ireland, Galway Bay direction. So what usually happens, we don't usually film this, is that we have a monthly meeting on Zoom, and we have a little bit of a theme, and I compile a playlist and they contribute to the playlist so that I'm the DJ, the streaming DJ. And we have a little bit of a story about some of the selections of music. We've had discussions about the 60s. We had discussions about 1970 to 74. And we're also going to have one about the best cover versions ever. So one of my three friends was a little bit camera shy and reluctant to appear on YouTube. Don't know why, because he's a very knowledgeable person about music. And so you won't see Alan on screen, but this first collaboration was recorded while we were waiting for Alan to join us. So the theme this time was, I think, 1975 to 79, some excerpts from Beatles related books.
Okay, so Tim, so Eddie Cochran was being driven back to Heathrow Airport in the middle of his UK tour with Gene Vincent because he was homesick and he wanted to go home for Christmas. So the taxi driver that was driving him on the A4 crashed just outside Chippenham and killed, I think, the taxi driver himself, but also Eddie Cochran. The first policeman on the scene got there and found his guitar and picked it up and realized it was in perfect condition. It was a Gretsch guitar, and he started playing it and thought, hang on, I've got, this is something I can do. So he shortly thereafter left the police and formed a pop band, and they sold more records than the Beatles for 3 years.
So who was the band?
Well, he was Dave D.
Dave D. Dozy Beaky McIntitch.
Yeah.
Oh God.
What an amazing
he was
story,
a policeman, was he?
I thought that was what an amazing story. I've just never heard that before. So yeah, that was Dave D. He was a policeman and picked up Eddie Cochran's guitar, but sadly at his fatal car crash, and decided to go into pop music.
Oh dear.
So brilliant. But the other thing that was very interesting, but also rather poignant, was the chap who accidentally killed John Lennon's mum when she stepped in front of him. He was a policeman at the time, and shortly thereafter, even though he was exonerated, lack of evidence as much as anything, he left the police and he became a postman. And several years later, when the Beatles became famous, he realized who it was that he had killed, i.e. John Lennon's mother, Julia, and then he felt even worse because not only had he killed somebody, but he'd now killed the mother of the most famous, one of the most famous 4 people in the entire planet. But then he was a postman, and he was delivering post to where Paul McCartney's father lived. And so he was delivering sackfuls of fan mail every day to Forlorn Avenue, where Paul McCartney grew up, to his dad, realizing that he had actually killed the mother of one of the Beatles. So that's a bit of a poignant story, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah. And he said as soon as he realized that it was John Lennon's mother he'd killed, he said he knew somebody would discover it. And they found out in the late 90s, the journalist tracked him down. So that was a bit of a sad thing for him. I mean, obviously it was very sad at the time as well.
So is this all from that book that you were saying?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. There's lots of fantastic nuggets in there, but there's a lot of stuff to get, there's a lot of journalism to get through as well.
There's a Paul McCartney book that's come out as well, isn't there?
Yeah, but that's all about the songs.
Yeah.
Well, I
what-
think
and-
it's called Lyrics.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it covers Beatles and Wings and
It's all the
solo
Beatles
stuff as
songs that
well.
McCartney himself wrote, not the John Lennon
Yeah.
songs.
So I think, well, I'm getting it for my birthday, or part of my birthday, from my lovely wife. So,
Right.
but I believe, as well as the lyrics, it kind of gives the autographical story round about the lyrics. So
Yes.
it's a bit of both. So it's not a full blown autobiography, but
No, not at all.
but,
No, it's
yeah.
about the songs.
about the
Yeah.
song. So
I mean, again, one of the stories in the Beatle book is marvelous because Peter, he's living at Jane Asher's house for 3 years. So he's in top floor bedroom, and Jane Asher's mum is a very well-respected classical music teacher. And she taught, funnily enough, George Martin, who later produced the Beatles, the oboe when he was at Guildhall Musical College. And so she had a teaching room downstairs, which she said to Paul, you're very welcome to use to do your songwriting, because she helped him with his piano, because obviously his dad played piano, but he didn't. He was a guitar player. So she helped him with the piano. And then one day, Peter Asher said he let John Lennon into the room, and the Beatles had already been big in the UK, but were still hoping to make it in America. And they were very nervous about America because Cliff, who had been the previous massive star, completely failed in America, and Cliff Richard and the Shadows. So a lot was riding on the next song. And so John Lennon turned up, and then about an hour later, Peter Asher said there was a knock on his bedroom door, and Paul McCartney said, do you want to come down to the basement? Because me and John have just written a song and want to see what you think of it. So Peter Asher said he walked in, and then Paul was on piano, John was on guitar, and they played what he said was the best rock and roll song he'd ever heard in his life, which 1 hour previously didn't exist. And it's called I Want to Hold Your Hand.
right. That's
But,
fantastic.
Brilliant story, isn't it? I love those sorts of tidbits. I really do.
Yeah.
But Jane Asher's brother that you were mentioning,
Peter, Paul, and Gordon.
yes, yeah.
That's right. So, and then their first hit was a Lennon McCartney song,
Right, okay.
World Without Love.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yeah, I think that was the first one. It could have been Cilla Black as well. But
I'm reading another book at the moment. I think I've mentioned it before. It's about 830 odd pages long, and it's a Beatles history, but it finishes on the 31st of
Mark Lewison.
December, the Mark Lewison one.
Yeah.
And it finishes at the end of 1962.
Yes.
So the bit that I'm at, I'm only on page 320 or something like that, and it's their first tour of Scotland, but
Right.
the backing group,
Yes.
the backing group to somebody called Johnny Gentle or something
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
And all it's the first autographs that were written by the Beatles. So John Lennon is Johnny Lennon, and Paul McCartney is Paul Ramone, or Ramon, which the Ramones later picked up on to make their band name.
I didn't know that. So is that where the Ramones band name came from?
Yes, that's right. Because it was a
brilliant. I
pseudonym.
didn't know that.
So that was it. Was that his nickname or was that his real name?
No.
That was his nickname. It's
It was a stage name.
Stage name, yeah.
Stage
Yeah.
name,
He never
yeah.
used it as a nickname. It was a stage name.
Right.
And George Harrison, I can't remember. He had some other name. He used Harrison as a surname, but he'd.
I think he called himself Harrison Ford.
Now they're a band that were part of the Strawbs, weren't they? They were a breakout from the Strawbs.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting because they played in Elgin, didn't they? All sorts of
In
weird places.
Elgin, and their last date was in Fraserburgh or Peterhead.
Right.
And one of they had an accident outside Banff, and the drummer that they had at the time, Tommy somebody,
yeah,
he had to go to hospital, and then he came back, and he was performing on stage with a black eye and buckled teeth and whatever. But
yeah. Yeah.
I think he only lasted another couple of weeks, but Stuart Sutcliffe was in the band at that time as well.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating reading, and I love all this stuff because I'm a Beatles fan, but not everybody is. But no, that book, Mark Lewison, I heard him being interviewed about it. He's about 2/3 of the way through book 2, and he's hoping to finish it in 3 books. But he said he's got no idea when he will finish. He said the publishers have been very kind to him, and they're just letting him do it to his own deadline. So it's very detailed, and of course, there's so many different biographies already. I mean, I didn't realize, but Hunter Davies' biography was written in '68 while the Beatles were still going.
And I think he had access to Paul McCartney and some of the band at the time as well. Although he wouldn't be very critical of them. He would be, sucking up to them a bit, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, some of the stuff in the 1, 2, 3, 4 is pretty, hard hitting, and it revealed how brilliant they were and how funny they were, but also how, every now and again, how cruel they could be. But yes, no, it's a fascinating book. So many. I mean, the other sad story I thought was the chap who stood in for Ringo Starr when he had tonsillitis, because before the Beatles, he was a session drummer doing pretty well, and he was actually just become the first choice drummer for Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames. So he was in a pretty good place. And then Brian Epstein, he was on the same bill as the Beatles, or playing music in the same film, and that's what gave him the idea to use him, because their other 2 choices weren't available. So he went to Hong Kong and Australia with him. He was literally playing with the Beatles for 10 days. And at the end of that 10 days, he was sent home. There's a bit more to it than that. He was given a very expensive gold watch, and he was given £500, £50 a day. But of course, when he got back, he was a celebrity, and I think Shirley Bassey did a big concert at the London Palladium, and he was in the audience, and Shirley Bassey said, "Oh, can we have the 5th Beatle stand up, please?" And then everybody applauded him. So when Georgie Fame said, "Right, are you coming back?" He said, "No, bugger off. I'm going to create my own band and become a superstar," which of course he didn't. He failed and just disappeared without trace, and it ruined his life. Whereas if he'd just been left alone, he'd have been doing pretty well as a jobbing drummer, working for Georgie Fame and whoever else came along later. So that's a bit of a sad story.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be difficult to go from obscurity to playing in front of 150,000 screaming fans and then disappear back into obscurity again. Because he was really hoping that they say to him, "You're better than Ringo, we'll keep you." But of course, just like Pete Best, he didn't have the persona. The thing about Ringo was that the Beatles were dead cheeky and very quick-witted. Yeah. And Ringo was as well, although he was quiet. Was Pete Best just wasn't. He was just a looker. People liked the look of him, but he didn't have the wit that the other 3 had. And the same with this guy, just didn't have that kind of charisma or character. So it's a sad story, but there you go.
Interesting though.
Yeah. No, I find there's lots of very interesting stuff, but as I said, there's a lot to wade through. But what Bill's reading is even more detailed than that. But at least it's chronological, Bill.
Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4 goes backwards and forwards like a yo-yo, doesn't it?
This one being chronological, each it's not each chapter, but there's a section of the book, and it's 6 months in a year. So
yes,
I'm just they haven't arrived in Hamburg yet, but that can't be far away yet.
No, that's great. The Hamburg bit. I mean, the one film I'd like to see again is Backbeat, which is about the Hamburg years. I haven't seen that for a long time. Nowhere Boy is about John Lennon growing up, meeting the Beatles, and it finishes with them going to Hamburg for the first time. Whereas Backbeat actually features the band in Hamburg with Astrid and Klaus Vormann and all that stuff. So I'd like to see Backbeat again. So I'll have to see if I can find it somewhere. I can't really see anymore, but I can hear it. I still enjoy listening to it.
The first Beatles album that I had, but I no longer have, was Tony Sheridan and and the Silver Beatles. I think that was on Music for Pleasure or something.
Yeah.
But they sang My Bonnie and some rock and roll standards. But,
it got into the charts in America, Bill. Because in America, when I wanna hold your hand went skyrocketed, they ended up buying everything. And at one point, they had 12 singles in the top 100, of which 9 of them were in the top 40, I think. and the top 5, 1 to 5, were all the Beatles.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
Bit like
phenomenal.
Ed
And
That's
then
Sheeran,
amazing. Yeah.
anything by the Beatles, including Tony Sheridan and the other ones, were in the charts as well. And I listened to 2 Desert Island Discs yesterday, and they were both very good. The first one was Keith Richards, which his music choices were great, you know, and I really enjoyed it actually. But the second one was Tom Hanks, and of course Tom Hanks was like many Americans. When he heard the Beatles for the first time, it just blew his world wide open, you know. And the record he picked was a very obscure Beatles record, but it was the first one he heard. This Is the Place. So he loves that Beatles record because it takes him back to when he was 9 years old and suddenly thinking, wow, you know, there's a big world out there that's not all to do with my parents, type of thing. So yeah, that was very interesting. That anyway.
So do you want to go on to a choice of music?
Yeah.
Can I just tell you something?
Please do.
Talking about song books and things. This is a song book which I've just received this week through the post. It's something I ordered about 13 or 14 months ago, and it's called Silent Singing, and it's by Ian Anderson.
All right.
It's basically it includes every song that Ian Anderson recorded, and so that's all his Jethro Tull songs and also his soloist ones as well.
What do you mean? All the notes?
No, it's all the lyrics.
Oh, just the lyrics.
It's the lyrics, but there are some comments and things about them, and
Right.
And the other good thing about it is, well, there's photographs as well, which
Yes.
he's taken himself.
Yeah.
And so they illustrate some of the songs as well with these photos. And then at the back, there's a Roll of Honor, and it's got my name on it.
Wow.
Why?
Well,
Could
one
you
of
spend
the-
more money on tickets for Jethro Tull than anyone else?
Yeah, no. It's just when it was being, it finalised, they said, if you want to be in it, then, tell us your name and we'll add you into it.
Right.
So it's a great long list, to be honest, but...
Well, your
amazing.
name's on it, so that's the important thing. So that's why you had to wait 14 months, did you say?
Yeah, well, they had problems with the printers. It was a lot to do with COVID and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But they
And
couldn't
what was the title of the book?
paper.
Living in the Past.
No, that's too boring now. It's called Silent Singing.
Silent
I heard you.
singing.
Yeah.
Why the
is
silent
there
singing?
a Ian Anderson website or Jethro Tull website that you
Yeah,
became
Jethro
aware of?
Tull, Ian Anderson, it's the same website.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's limited edition, so I don't know if they've still got them available, but
It might be too late to get your signed Tim Westcott copy, Bill.
yes.
Right, okay.
But, yeah, there was a signed one as well, which I didn't go for because it like tripled the price of the book. I
So?
didn't think it was worth it for that.
Oh dear. No, I don't think people pay for a signature. Well, they might do.
Well, I
They
think
might.
they would.
There was that's going back to the Beatles. Aunt Mimi would, if people turned up at her house asking if John Lennon was in, and she would say, "Oh, just wait there, and I'll see if I can get some autographs for you." And I think
Right.
she would forge the autographs or something like that. So,
Oh, really?
that means that some of the people that think they have original Beatles
Oh,
autographs.
yes.
Oh
They
no,
might.
it's worse than that. Derek Taylor or Alistair Taylor, Derek Taylor, he did lots of the Beatles autographs. So lots of the postal requests for autographs were done by their press officers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the sheer
But-
volume, it wouldn't have worked otherwise, because people don't realize, unless they were around at the time, just how, massively huge the Beatles were. I mean, there was just nothing like it, and nothing like it since, not on that global scale.
Yeah.
So no, they just couldn't cope with demand. But yeah,
I think there are companies out there that are flogging these signed photos.
yes,
All
yeah,
sorts of pop stars and film stars and people,
yeah.
and they're all fakes, and they're selling them for thousands of pounds.
Oh yeah,
And you know, because the general public don't know that it's not a genuine one. You need a real expert to ascertain whether it is or not.
It's a bit like buying a bit of the Berlin Wall, isn't it? You've no idea from Adam where it's come from, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
So will we go with your first one then, Bob?
My first one, probably not, because we'll wait for Alan for that one. How about the last one?
The last one.
Right.
Okay, so I'll play your middle choice then.
I think my middle choice. So leading up, so this wasn't as good a period musically for me as the first half of the 70s.
Yeah.
So and you know, I was never into punk, and the nearest I got to punk was the record you're going to hear now. And funny enough, it was the first concert I went to without my mum. So I went to see the Spinners, and I went to see all sorts of things with mum, but not, you know, this. And I started at Middlesex Poly in the summer of '76, and the first week of term we went to Nebworth to see Genesis. And Genesis was supported by Jefferson Starship, and they were both excellent, by the way.
Yeah.
But even better was this next band. Even better.
Right. Okay, that's.
But I remember the day because, and he came on stage, and I've never heard of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers because this was they'd only been in the UK a few days. This was their first tour.
Right. Yeah.
To promote this first new album. And it was those jangly Birds type, Roger McGuinn type guitar playing. And I just thought, my God, this is fantastic. You know, couldn't believe it. And believe it or not, I that was my first concert. My second concert was the following Thursday at the Marquee Club in London. And it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Instead of 120,000 people, it was 500. Crikey. So amazing. They were just so good live. They really were. So great day that.
Yeah.
But Bob, you said you didn't like punk, but did you not go along to a Sex Pistols concert?
Yes, but it was one of the worst concerts I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Right.
I can understand that, to be honest.
They played for 25 minutes and were sitting at the audience and all sorts. It was terrible.
Yeah. Right.
That was awful.
And
it was before the Bill Grundy interview, Bill.
Right. Okay.
The sound would have been turned right up, and you wouldn't be able to hear it properly.
And there was a lot of fighting afterwards, but I missed all that because as soon as it finished, we left.
Yeah.
And I only heard the next day how much fighting there had been. Because it was at my Poly, it was at Middlesex Poly. They played at Middlesex Poly. I saw the Adverts, I saw the Boomtown Rats, I saw George Thorogood and the Destroyers. They were good, but they weren't punk. But no, all the punk bands, I didn't see the Clash. But yeah, no, I'm afraid it passed me by, really. I was a bit too square, Bill.
Well, I think I was probably a bit too square as well, but because I was aware that punk was going on, but I didn't really go out of my way to find out about any punk bands that might be playing in the area. I think I felt that they were very much do it yourself, and the musicianship wouldn't be there. So I'd be.
Although you have to have a lot of sympathy and empathy for the reason, you know, because rock was getting progressive and you were getting 25-minute guitar solos from bands like Yes and stuff like that. Yeah. So you can sort of, and you know, the production and the overblown pyrotechnical light shows and all that sort of thing, it just became very, very expensive, didn't it? And so punk was kind of a rebellion against that. So I approved of all that, but the music, bottom line for me, with the odd exception, didn't really do it for me. But Alan was a lot better on it.
Because I really liked when the Sex Pistols did covers of Eddie Cochran. So it was the Eddie Cochran rock and roll beat that I liked, and I did like their take on it as well. But,
their later singles, I mean, Pretty Vacant and things like that, were pretty good actually.
Yeah.
And then Public Image did a great record as well. What was it? I think it was their first hit. I thought that was a great record, actually. So when they got better, and again, it's about the music, isn't it? When the music got better, they were actually very powerful.
Because they got back to 3-minute songs and fairly simple 3-chord wonders as well.
So,
back to basics, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't all bad, but I'd already moved on. Well, not moved on, but I was just steeped in other stuff by then.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Blondie was the other one. They came out of the new wave scene in New York as well. Obviously Tom Petty was from Georgia, place called Athens. Funny enough, the same place that REM came from. But so they weren't, they weren't really new wave. They were southern rock and roll, really. But Blondie was new wave, and again, I liked them better than most of the punk stuff.
Yeah, Blondie were great. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a good pop band, weren't they? They were a very good pop band.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
So Tim, do you want to introduce one of yours?
Well, I was going to go 1, 2, 3, but I could go 3, 2, 1.
Whoa! Steady on, Tim.
Right.
Seeing as we're in this vein.
Okay. Now, this is interesting. On the Spotify list, it does say that the lyrics are explicit. So I don't. Well, I think they probably were in the original.
Well, depends how square you are.
Right. Well, the other thing is as well, if we do put it on YouTube, I'll have to cut the music short for rights reasons anyway. But a bit like Desert Island Discs.
You can cut out the naughty bits.
I don't know.
I hadn't realised you were into naughty bits, Tim.
We haven't heard what I'm going to say yet.
This is true.
So you want to give it an intro?
It's not Hey Big Spender or anything like that. Or Je t'aime. No, what the song I really remember as well is the phrase sex and drugs and rock and roll. Well, it originated in the 60s, but Ian Dury and the Blockheads popularised it with a song called Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, which came out in 1977. And this was just as punk was taking off. And
just after.
And so they got sort of rolled along into that phase of people who were playing that sort of stuff. Their first record was on the Stiff record label, which they had several other artists, including Elvis Costello,
Nick
Lowe, and Reckless Eric.
Yes, Reckless Eric. Who was the girl? There was a girl on it as well. What was her name? No, not Tracy.
I was away to say Polythene Palm, but I think that's a Beatles reference, isn't it?
No.
X-ray Specs or Polystyrene or something. No.
Don't know. I think they're a bit later.
It'll come back to me, but it's
But yeah, they got all these artists sort of.
They went on a train together, didn't they?
Punkish, yeah. Well, they did a tour of Great Britain to expose themselves, and the slogan they had, it was, "If it ain't stiff, it ain't worth it."
I don't remember that.
They had T-shirts printed out, and
not surprised.
I do remember that slogan.
I don't. That's the first time I've heard that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so they went on this tour, and Elvis Costello, who'd already had some hits and things, he was the headliner officially. Yeah. But when at every gig they went to, it was this song "Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll" that was the most popular, and they always had to do it as an encore.
Really
interesting. So it was really just as punk was on the rise, and it became a punk anthem. But Ian Dury wasn't happy with that label, because he said it's more of an alternative life to a 9-to-5 existence. So
he had a band called Colburn and the High
Roads. That's right.
So were they a different genre, or did they?
That was just before the Blockheads.
Right.
That was his backing band that he used to go out and play in pubs and things. They did record a couple of things, I think, but
I didn't realise they were the same band, or his backing band. Right.
More or less the same, yeah.
Yeah.
So might as well play it then.
Yeah.
Got a good bass line, if I remember.
Yeah, well, it's the guitar riff that drives it
Yes,
along. That's
absolutely.
by Chaz Jankel, who co-wrote a lot of the songs.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll is all my brain and body need. Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Got my favourite bit in where he says, "See my tailor, he's called Simon. I know
Yes,
it's going
yeah.
to fit."
But what I've never heard before, Tim, until I heard it just now, was the "ow, ow, ow" sound.
Oh,
I've never
yeah.
heard that before.
Really?
Yeah, because I've got my headphones on. I think I've never listened to it with headphones before.
Ah, yeah.
So yeah, very
You
interesting.
do hear better with headphones.
yes.
So
Definitely.
Tim, did you have Simon shirts when you were in that era?
No, I don't
No,
think so.
I think, or were they the skinheads one or something like that?
I think I was trying to remain anonymous. Although I was appreciating the music, I wasn't going out there and dressing up and
Right.
having the skinhead haircuts and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't picture you with a Mohican either, Tim. But yeah,
No, certainly not now.
so the cover of that album had two music stars on it, because as well as Ian Dury, there's Baxter Dury, must be about age 6, is on the cover of New Boots and Panties. So
All right.
the album, and
Well, his son.
his son, yes, Baxter Dury. And I remember the song about Gene Vincent is excellent on that album.
Sweet
as
Gene
well.
Vincent. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
And
it sort of starts very quietly, and then it comes in with a real slam of guitar or drums or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good tracks on that album.
Yeah.
And to go back to where we started,
Yeah.
Eddie Cochran was on the Gene Vincent headlining tour when he
Oh,
had
right.
when he was killed. So he was
Yeah.
touring the UK with Gene Vincent. He was the headline, and
Yeah.
they got local bands, include local musicians like people like Joe Brown were playing as backing,
Mm.
because in those days the star would travel and they'd get
Yeah.
local musicians to provide the backing
Oh,
band.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and Gene Vincent apparently had a car crash and had a very his leg was damaged badly,
Yeah.
and he was in constant pain. So he was always taking drugs and painkillers, and he was a bit nutty. He used to walk around with a gun in his hand. In the UK in a 1960 tour, he used to scare people by pulling his gun out in the middle of the coach.
So he was going to be on the Gene Vincent was on the same bill as Eddie Cochran.
Yeah.
when they were touring. Yeah.
When Eddie
And-
Cochran died. Yeah. So halfway through the tour, Eddie Cochran disappeared. But of course,
And
Summertime Blues, Three Steps to Heaven. I mean,
I
which
believe
whose songs have stood the test of time?
according to that Beatles book, the Tune In one by Mark Lewison, the tour went on. Eddie Cochran had died, but they were quite happy for Gene Vincent to go up to Liverpool and play, despite the fact that his co-star was no longer alive.
But the point was, when the tour was put together, Gene Vincent was the big hero, and Eddie Cochran sort of broke later, and because he was very young and fresh faced. Of course, he was only about 20, I think, very young and a brilliant guitarist. So he got more and more popular as the tour progressed. But then, of course, when he went home in the mid tour break, he never came back again. So very sad. But yeah, good record, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me, because I saw Rock Pile later, so I missed punk altogether. But Nick Lowe formed Rock Pile with Dave Edmunds, and they were good live. They were very good live.
Yeah. They all came off Stiff Records.
Yeah. Well, I remember a single by Nick Lowe that I loved at the time. There's a good bass line on it called Cracking Up.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked Cracking Up. Had a great vibe to it.
I'm going with the same sort of era, and we're all in the same era, but the same vein, let's say.
Yeah.
And I'm going over the Irish Sea, and a group from Derry.
Ah.
I love that song.
You and John Peel.
I was going to say John Peel's favourite.
Yeah, favourite record of all time. Yeah.
I think I'm not, yeah, maybe making this up, but I'm nearly sure that I first heard the Undertones on the John Peel show. So
Right.
I'm going to hold up this. It says Sharky's circling, so cut the crap, polluters. So he's that's Fergal Sharkey as he is now,
Oh, right.
in a three-piece suit with a tie as well, and he's campaigning to stop sewage being dumped in inland waterways and around the coast of the UK. So he's quite an activist these days. So kind of says that he didn't want to be an aging rock star with his hair in a ponytail. So, but he was, I think, in charge of the the music publishing group or something like that, so the one that makes sure that all the artists get their fair share of royalties, and
a bit like Bonnie Raitt in America,
and the sort of licensing thing. So I think he spent quite a bit on that side, and now he loves walking around canals, etc. So he's got heavily involved in campaigning against keeping the waterways clean, or trying to get them cleaned up, etc. So and Fergal's real name was Sean. So
not right. Sharky.
I didn't realise they were from Derry, by the way. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I would obviously pick Cortez the Killer, because Cortez the Killer, like Alan, it's probably my all-time favourite piece of music, but we played it many times before. So, Bill, if you don't mind, I think I'll go with the Fleetwood Mac.
Right, okay.
So, one of the things I love about this, it's not one of their better known songs, but I love the simple syncopated guitar playing on it. I think it's really, really lovely. And it's one that I've got on my homework list. One day I hope to try and pick up. But what I found very interesting is I was listening to Christine McVie on Desert Island Disc a few months ago. And when she was asked to pick her all-time favorite Fleetwood Mac song, this was the one she came up with as well, which I thought was very interesting.
That's good.
So yeah, I love it. But as I say, it's not a big blown Fleetwood Mac number. They always played it in concert. But
is this from Rumours?
Yes.
It is from Rumours, yeah. So yeah. It'll be
You'll know it, but it's not one of their big numbers.
There were so many mega hits on that album, and you'll know it when we hear it.
Oh yes. Oh, hang
on. So you won't be able to see all the tunes on this playlist that I produced for that discussion, but we also had one of Tim's other choices was from this album, Blood on the Tracks, and he chose Tangled Up in Blue. We also had Bob choosing Pink Floyd's The Wall, and this was I think he had a story about he went around the world, and he had just graduated, and he got a job as a trainee accountant, and I think there was some story about he had a limited wardrobe because he was traveling, and I think he managed to spill on his shirt or something. So in the accountant's office, they gave him money to buy a shirt, but instead he bought Pink Floyd's The Wall on cassette, I think it was. So that was Bob's story from the Wall, and he chose Comfortably Numb as the track he wanted to listen to. I chose a track from The Who by Numbers, Blue, Red and Grey, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful song. It's really, I suppose, a Pete Townsend solo number, but yeah. And you can see from my cover that I did join the dots. Probably ended up with the album being worth £3 less than it should have been. And one of my other selections would have been Asia from Steely Dan. So I'm also going to read other ones that were on the list. So Cortez the Killer from Zuma, and that was one of Bob's choices. Tim had No Man's Land by Eric Bogle on an album called By Request. Alan's selections were Chinese Rocks by Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers from LAMF, the Lost 77 mixes, and the track was on a 40th anniversary remaster. And then he, in these woke days, he recommends that everybody should listen to this track, which is called Slavery Days by Burning Spear, one of the great reggae artists. And then we had a very interesting selection, Mannish Boy from Hard Again by Muddy Waters. And of course, he was speaking about the white bluesmen and the way they resurrected the careers of some of these blues legends. And of course, Hard Again was really a sort of comeback LP from the late 70s. And I can't remember the band that were backing Muddy Waters on that. And then we also had What's so funny about Peace, Love and Understanding, Elvis Costello and Attractions. And I had a reserve of Heart of Glass. The idea is that really we should only be playing 3 tracks because allowing for time speaking between the music. So I hope you've enjoyed this unusual edition or unusual video from myself, Bill Vinylists, and I hope you enjoyed the stories of the Beatles and some of the selection of the tracks that we were playing, our favorites from the period 1975 to 1979. So bye for now. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas, or had a wonderful Christmas, and wishing everyone all the best for a safe and healthy new year. And let's hope 2022 is better than the previous 2 years. We live in hope. Bye just now.